Welcome to Soul Study, the podcast where we explore personal growth, spirituality, and the deeper questions of what it means to consciously create a life we love. Think of this as your weekly book club for the soul. Each episode will study powerful ideas from transformative books, reflect how they apply to real life, and gently challenge ourselves to grow together. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about remembering that you are energy, you are powerful, and you are always in a state of creation. Here, we take what resonates and leave the rest. So take a breath, open your heart, and get ready to become your most magnetic self. Let's begin today's Soul Study. Hi everyone, welcome back to Soul Study, the podcast to help you become the happiest, healthiest, most magnetic version of you. I'm your host, Jules, and today we are covering chapters 5 and 6 from The Key to Living the Law of Attraction, our book of the season. Last week, chapter 4 was a pretty important chapter. We talked about how happiness is a choice and also how forgiveness is something that you can do to set you free from resentment, and how clearing out all that stuff, aligning your vibration can really help you achieve what we're going to talk about in this chapter, which is becoming more abundant. So that was last week. And last week we also did our soul challenge, which was stranger gratitude. So I still have maybe 2 more days of doing stranger gratitude, but I wanted to get this podcast recorded because I did not have time this weekend. It is EDC weekend here in Vegas. And so it is very busy for performers around town. So this week is going to be a little bit jam-packed, and I wanted to make sure that I got my podcast ready for the launch this weekend. So I'm doing it a little bit early, but I still did do stranger gratitude at least once a day. I still have to do tomorrow and the next day. But for me, what I've noticed with stranger gratitude is that I tend to thank people a lot. But the difference was that this time I was deciding to actually try to feel it. Like when I said thank you or showed any sort of appreciation or gratitude, I wanted to actually feel that in my heart when I was expressing it. So that was something that was different that I did. But when I did do it, instead of just saying a random thank you, but actually feeling gratitude when I said that thank you, it really changed my perspective. It really changed my perspective of appreciation towards people. So if you did the same thing, let me know what your stranger gratitude challenge looked like for you and how it was going, because I realized that I actually probably should feel the words that I say a little bit more and not just blanket statement them. That's kind of what I realized. So let me know what you realized as well. So today we are diving in to chapters 5 and 6 and just a little overview about these chapters before we get started. It is going to be talking to us about positive mental states, reframing our thoughts into more positive statements, and how we can attract abundance into our lives. So what does that actually look like? We're going to find that out. We're going to talk about how you can start using these tools and tricks that are in the book today to think more positively and start attracting more abundance into your life. Let's dive in and first talk about our mental state, getting ourselves into a positive mental attitude state. Kind of backpacking off of what we said last week. All right, so let's dive into our first quote of the day. That quote is going to be on page 31 and 32. I think I'm combining 2 quotes together. I guess I am. I'm combining 2 quotes together as one because I felt like that's what demonstrated what I wanted to say best. So starting on page 31 in the first paragraph at the very top of chapter 5, it says, "If we focus our attention on something either positively or negatively, it will simply respond with more of it. Remember, where your attention goes, your energy flows." That's on the bottom of page 32, that second part. So I really like these because I bet you've heard where your attention goes, your energy flows before, or something very similar. There's like a story, I think it's a Native American tradition story where they talk about you have a good wolf and a bad wolf on your shoulder, or like the angel and the devil in some other cultures, and the one that grows bigger and has more control is the one you feed. So feeding your positivity versus your negativity. So we're going to dive a little bit more into that and how you can start reframing your brain to start thinking less negatively and a little more positively. It's a little bit like, especially when it says where you focus your attention on something, you'll respond with more of it. Have you ever had that phenomena happen to you where you like are thinking about, oh, I want to see like a red car today. And on days where you're like, I normally never see red cars, as soon as you're like, I want to see a red car today, so many red cars pop up. There's like a little phenomena like that. So it's a little bit like that, but in the sense of energy as well. So when you focus on negativity, you'll find that more negative things happen to you because that is where you're putting your attention. That is where you're putting your focus. And also this could be due to your perspective. If your perspective is wired negatively, you're going to perceive things way more negatively, and that is where your energy is going to go, and that is what's going to flow to you. Now, flip side. Same thing happens if you are focusing your attention on positivity. That means when other scenarios come up, your perspective is also changing and you're thinking about things more positively. And since the energy you are putting out there is more positive, the energy coming back into you will be more positive as well. Everything is in flow. Everything flows. There's an ebb and flow to all this. And we're going to even dive deeper into that today as well. Everything requires energy. And just like how we talked about the good wolf and the bad wolf, whichever one you're feeding with your energy is who you are going to become. So if you are putting a lot of energy into feeding your negative side, then you are more likely to just overall be a more negative person and experience more negative things. Whereas if you are putting your attention and feeding into your mindset more positive energy, then you are going to become a more positive person because your mental state is that of one that is wired more positively. And that sometimes actually just naturally comes from people. Like I'm a pretty joyous, positive person, I'd say, just naturally, but it is a lot harder for other people. And like I've said in the previous episodes, like I did pull myself out of negativity to become and choose to be happy. So you can do that as well. Now, remember, this is something we talked about, I think, in chapter 1, but it's coming back around here to help us navigate with focusing where our attention and energy is going. What we learned in chapter 1 is, remember, your mind and the universe do not hear don't. They take things very literally. Your subconscious mind, the universe takes things very literally. So what we are focusing on, we want to make sure we're focusing not on what we don't want, but instead of what we do want. So an example of this, so let's say you are struggling with anger. Instead of saying things like, I don't want to be angry today, or I do not want to become angry, what you're putting the attention on there is anger, becoming angry. That is the focus. Anger is the focus, even though you say it's something you do not want. The anger is still the focus. That is where the attention is going. So instead, rephrasing that to, I want to be joyful today. I want to feel joyful today. The attention now is going towards joy. So you can see you're putting your attention more into a positive aspect rather than a negative aspect. And this will help your attention and your focus go towards that of the outcome you desire versus the outcome you do not desire. Now, how I've seen this in my life. I've seen this a lot, specifically with performing. When I'm focusing on not wanting to mess up and I tell myself, don't mess up, don't mess up, don't do it, don't trip here, don't fall out of a turn, don't let go of your apparatus, which that one I'm pretty good at because, you're high off the ground and your body's not going to want to let go. But when you're thinking about not messing up, I'm way more likely to mess up with something. If I'm thinking about don't mess up, I'm definitely going to mess up on something, miss a move, miss a turn. Something's going to happen because I'm focusing on messing up. I'm not here. My brain, my subconscious, the universe is not hearing the don't. It's just hearing the mess up. Now, on the flip side, how I've been rephrasing that, and I definitely did this over my March show. I decided we're going to give this a shot once again. I'm going to consciously remember to think about what I do want rather than what I don't want. So I remember being backstage, getting ready to go onto the show. And there was a part in the show where the choreography I was just kind of having a struggle with. And I was either late or I was like messing up a certain part of it. And so I told myself that night, I was like, you know what? Tonight, I'm going to do that move perfectly. I'm going to do that choreography perfectly. I'm going to get every move tonight. I'm going to do it. And so I was reframing my brain to, instead of thinking, don't mess up, I was thinking, I'm going to do this perfectly tonight. And I did. I wouldn't say like no one can do anything perfectly, but I didn't forget any of my moves. It felt really good. I was focused. I was fully into the performance. I was fully focused into the performance instead of worrying about messing up. So that's kind of one personal story to show you how I was putting my intention into the thing that I wanted rather than the thing that I didn't want. Now, I also did this with who I am and just like my overall life. Instead of thinking, I don't want my life to suck, I don't want to be a failure, like instead of thinking about things like that, which I don't really think I had very like specific do nots, I reframed that to thinking of myself as someone who is brave and someone who gets opportunities everywhere I go. Now, when I thought that way and got rid of the stress and the worry about what I didn't want and just started focusing on myself as a brave person that gets opportunities, I started getting more opportunities. And I also started getting more opportunities because I told myself I was brave. And because I was being brave and going out and doing the things, I was gaining more opportunities. So your thoughts really influence your actions, and your actions basically just make up your whole life. So reframing your mind in order for you to take positive action will change your life. There's no doubt about it, because you are going to be acting differently. So tips on how you can start trading your thoughts around is notice if your thoughts are leaning more positively or more negatively. First, take a look and see where are my thoughts going. Then start rephrasing all thoughts that say I don't, start replacing them with what is it you want to happen. So take out the don't and put in what it is you would desire to happen. So start doing that. Play around with it a little bit. See what happens. And that's really all for quote number 1. We got 4 quotes today, so let's move it right along to quote number 2. This chapter, this episode, we're really going to start building on how to use the law of attraction. We're going to start talking about that a little bit more. So you're going to see that quote number 1 is going to start somewhere. It's going to build up with quote number 2. Quote number 3 is going to build onto quote number 4. It's all going to kind of align itself this week, which is really cool because now we're getting more into the practical steps of the law of attraction. Now, quote number 2 is on page 34 and 35. I think I also squished 2 quotes together. Let's look it up. Oh, also, yes, back on page 33, if you want more examples of shifting your mind from the don't into the do, there are a couple of examples here. I'll show it on the video. There are a couple examples here that basically are like, instead of thinking, I don't want to be late, think I want to be on time. Like there's a whole list of ones like that. So you can kind of look over and see some examples if you need some help thinking of alternatives for some of your don't thoughts. So moving on to quote number 2 on page 34, 35, it's at the very bottom of page 34. Think about how much time we typically spend each day discussing our problems and focusing on what is wrong with our lives. Start paying attention to where your attention is going. So exactly like what we talked about in the first quote, the second quote is kind of explaining what tends to happen in our lives and what we need to start doing instead. Something that I thought about when I read this quote immediately was something that we love to do as a culture. I don't know if it's just my generation or if every generation does this or if places in other countries do this, but definitely in America, something that people love to do is one-up each other on who's having a worse day. I don't know what it is. It's a weird competition thing we do, but I like to call it victim sharing. We love to share about being a victim. We love to share about what's hard in our lives. And for some reason, we want to have a harder life than the person next to us. I don't know. So I've had a lot of thoughts about this. Let's dive into it. What does this mean? Remember, our words are powerful. So if we are speaking to someone about how negative our lives are going to become more negative because we are focusing on that. And we're actually rewarding ourselves to have a negative life in this situation. If we are talking to a friend and our friend is like, oh, I had such a hard day today. I had to do this. My car broke down. I only got this many hours of sleep. And then we're like yeah, because I also had this happen to me today and this sucked and I actually got even less sleep than you did. And so for some reason, we feel rewarded for having a worse experience than the person we are talking to. And it's a weird, it almost seems like a little bit of trickery that the negative energy wants to put out there, because it's like, ooh, here's a reward for being negative. So it makes you want to be negative more because you're getting rewarded for it. For some weird reason, we think that one-upping each other on that and being the worse one out of the two is a good thing. I don't know. And I think that honestly, I was really thinking about, why do we do this? Why is this a thing? And I wrote it down in my notes because it was just popped into my brain and I wanted to make sure I got it down. It seems like this is the case because we are looking for sympathy. And in the United States, hustle culture is very active. And in hustle culture, there is not a lot of sympathy. It's a lot of one-upsmanship. What am I doing better than you? And so with that grind mindset, I think it contributes to a lack of empathy and also searching for understanding. We're trying to have people understand us, but without knowing it, and search for comfort, but without knowing it, it's actually putting us on a more negative path. We also use this because of this hustle mindset, you have to be perfect at everything. You have to do well. You have to overachieve. And I think that using this victim sharing thing is not only searching for hey, I need some sympathy here because it is hard and I am working hard. You see how hard I'm working. It's proving that you're working hard, but it's also giving you a shield if you're underperforming. Because it's oh, look, it's not because of me that I couldn't do this correctly. It was because look how hard my life was, or look how less sleep I got, or look at this and that. It's because we are so driven to do well that we allow ourselves to have all this negative stuff happen as a barrier to protect us from not being in the hustle, in the grind, being perfect. Now, I do think that that is kind of where victim sharing comes from. I don't know if that's 100% true. That's just kind of what I was thinking about when I look at victim sharing in general. Now, where have I seen this in my life? Where do I see myself talking about my problems and how often I was doing that? When I was working a job I hated, I found that me and my coworkers always talked about just the negative things that were happening in our lives. We always talked about how little sleep we got. If she was like, oh, I only got 5 hours of sleep last night, I'd be like, oh, I only got 4.5. And just talk about something was wrong with her car. Oh, but something's also wrong with my car. We just kept talking about negative things that happened. And I have even had friends. I noticed that the majority of our conversations that my friend and I were having, we were just only talking about our problems. I have distanced myself from a lot of friends like that. Obviously, I'm going to be someone that if my friend is having a problem, I want them to be able to vent to me. But venting is different from one-upping each other and bragging about our negative things that are happening in our life. That's two very different things. And you probably have noticed that in your life too. Even still, with performing, I will compare oh, I worked this hard yesterday and now I'm sore, feeling this way. I'm trying to say how bad I'm feeling to converse with another person and also kind of bring us closer together, bonding through problems, which I don't think is something that we should do. And so now I've actually been thinking about when I'm having a conversation with someone and they're bringing up that negativity, bringing up their problems, instead of responding with my own problems, listen. Just listen. I don't need to respond with my own problems. I know what my problems are and I do not want to perpetuate them. And by talking about them, by giving them attention, we're attracting more of it into our lives. We're feeding it, just like the last quote said. So, what are some tips that you can do today to stop you from victim sharing? That's what I'm going to call it. I don't know if that's the actual term, but I'm going to call it victim sharing. So for victim sharing, if someone is complaining to you about how hard their life is, instead of agreeing and also talking about how hard your life is, we're going to show empathy and comfort to their life. We're going to be like, I am sorry that happened to you. That's really tough. And also you can talk about And see, this is where it could get kind of weird because social norms are kind of funny. And if like someone's talking about how bad their life is and you kind of say like, oh, but my life's actually great, it kind of feels like bragging. But we really need to stop diminishing people for talking about how in love they are with their lives. If someone is in love with their life, we should be supporting them and be like, I'm so happy for you. Different from bragging. Bragging is like a completely different thing. It's really like what your intention is. Like I actually had this the other day. One of my friends was having a hard day and she was very vulnerable and came up to me and was like, hey, I just need to let you know off the bat, I am not having a good day today. And she was also like, and do you have space for me to talk to you? She asked, she's like, do you have space for me to vent? And I was like, yes, of course. Oh my gosh. And I said, I'm actually in a really great place today. So I totally have the capacity to hear you right now. And that was like, I will say it's rare that I've actually like had that kind of forthcomingness in talking about asking and like receiving, like that give and take with someone. But it was so refreshing because it was like, instead of the awkward, like, oh no, did I overshare? It was like, hey, can I be vulnerable with you for a second? Can you take this on? And I was able to share that I was actually in a great place. And that didn't like, it didn't feel like bragging. It felt like, no, actually, I do have the capacity because today I'm actually having a great day. So let me help you. Let me be ears to listen. So that's where I've seen it in my life. So if someone has, if someone's doing that with you, maybe try some of those tricks, like not talking about how negative your life is, but being an open ear to listen to what they have to say instead of perpetuating the negativity. This comes with taking time before you speak. That's the other tip. Take time before you speak and then be intentional about what you say. This might look like someone being like, wow, my life sucks. My car broke down on the way to work. And instead of being like, oh, dang, that sucks. I also slept horribly today. No, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is if someone's like, oh my gosh, my car broke down on the way to work today. I've just been having an awful day. You can go, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That does sound awful. I'm really glad you made it here. Is there anything I can do to cheer you up or help you? You can offer help, just try to think of ways. And like, obviously, you'll know the person, you'll know the situation, you know what is appropriate and not appropriate to offer and or say, but show some sympathy, show some empathy. You don't have to keep the negativity going. And also if they are just like barging you with a ton of negativity, you can walk away. We don't have to listen to it. We can politely bow out of being a part of that conversation. Moving on. Quote number 3, we're on page 38. We're now in chapter 6, so we're going to be talking a little bit more about abundance. So having that mental shift first is going to help with the practical steps on how to claim abundance into your life. But you first got to do the mental load in order for the physical things to start coming to you. So that's how how our previous chapters prepare us for these now future chapters. And that's what quotes 1 and 2 prepared us for, these next quotes 3 and 4. So quote number 3 is on page 38, and it says, you must be willing to give in order to receive. Very short, but very powerful. You must be willing to give in order to receive. Think about it like this. When you have a full closet, and you have a bunch of old clothes in your closet and your closet is full, you cannot put anything else in there. The closet is full. In order to put new things in, you must take things out and get rid of things. You must make room for the new things to come in. So that's in real life, but that also happens like on an energetic level, on a spiritual level, on a money level. Like we must, in order to receive things, we must make room for them to go. Now, there's an ebb and flow in everything, a give and a take. We are meant to receive. And so in order for us to make room for the universe to naturally allow us to receive things, we need to get rid of things. And mostly we need to be able to give freely without fear. When we give freely, we receive freely as well. Something that most of us are the most familiar with when it comes to giving is in monetary value. So I think about this when I am giving away money, when I am purchasing something, whether I am tipping someone, I am giving my money away as a token of appreciation. So I'm having gratitude when I am sending things out, which is letting me give freely without any sort of fears on it, without any sort of anxiety behind it. I'm allowing myself to give freely. And I have seen that when I give freely, things I've been also receiving freely, and I'm sometimes receiving more than I have been giving, which is kind of crazy. So look at money as a token of appreciation, because appreciation and gratitude is one of the highest feelings of abundance that you can have. It is one of those triggers that will trigger abundance into your life, is feeling gratitude. Now, there's a quote in this chapter by Wayne Dyer that I thought represented this really well. It's actually on page 37. And it talks about abundance. It says, abundance is not something we acquire. It is something we tune into. There's no scarcity of opportunity to make a living at what you love. There is only a scarcity of resolve to make it happen. It's really all up to you. If there is no scarcity, if there's always abundance and it's just you tapping into it, it's not going to come to you. It's you going to it. You going towards abundance. And that's all up to you. And that's actually really awesome about all these things about manifestation. And what's been really cool about being a human here is that we have free will. And this is what our free will lets us do. It lets us choose whether or not we want to tap into that frequency. And there are tools to help you do that, because reprogramming your brain is really hard. Okay, so let's continue with that. We need to allow the universe to flow. We don't have control over it. We need to let it flow. So when we try to hold on to things too tightly, we're blocking things to come in, because the way we do things is not the same way the universe does things. So we need to provide open flow for things to be able to move naturally. Because there's always an ebb and flow to the universe. There's a push, there's a pull, there's things coming in, there's things going out, like the yin and yang in Taoism. In Taoism, the yin and the yang, the little, I think of them as like little fish. The little fish circling each other, one's white, one's black. That is showing that there's always an ebb and a flow. There's always a push and a pull, and not necessarily there's always negative and positive. It's just showing that there's always this balance that is going on. Where I've seen this personally happen in my life is that I used to have a lot of fear around lack and scarcity. And sometimes it comes back, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'll feel a little bit of fear when it comes to oh my gosh, that is a lot of money I have to pay right now. I'm feeling a little scarcity and feeling a little bit of lack. But it's gotten way better because I've been training myself to show me spending money specifically, because that one is, I feel like I have the most fear of scarcity and lack is around money. And I think a lot of people also have that same fear. So I've been focusing more so on money, but you can also focus it on towards love or attention or lack of emotional well-being, spiritual well-being. There's a bunch of other places where one can feel lack. I just feel like for myself and for many people out there, money is probably the biggest one. So I've been focusing on that one. So instead of thinking about how I'm scared about spending money, I have reframed it towards gratitude for being able to spend the money. Oh my gosh, look how amazing it is that I have this money right now that I can spend. That's cool. Or let me tip this person because I really appreciated how they treated me and I want to show them a token of my appreciation. Every time this happens, I always get the same, if not more, in return. And the timing can be whatever. It can be a little bit down the line. It doesn't have to be the same day. Sometimes it is the same day, and that's wild. But sometimes it is, the universe takes its own time. We are not in charge of that timing. Now, this comes with letting go and surrendering and knowing that I will also be provided for. If God can provide for the animals of this earth, I can also be provided for. And I am going to let myself be open to having myself receive that from the universe. That's one thing that I do. Another thing I do is that I notice when I let go of fear and tap into gratitude, things just come to me. Some examples of this are at work. I was making no tips one night. 0 tips, none. And I decided that I was going to practice this gratitude intention. And so I completely kind of zoned out I stopped paying like a lot of attention to like the area around me and put my attention inwards. So I was still dancing. I was really mostly just focusing inward on my feelings though. And I ended up feeling this overwhelming sense of gratitude. I was so excited that I could come to work, that I could move my body, that I could dance, I could listen to fun music and wear a fun costume. I was feeling so grateful. So I was dancing on the box. I was like feeling all this gratitude and stuff. And then I see the dealer call for the pit boss. And I'm like watching because, I do need to be aware so I'm not like hitting someone as they're walking by. So I'm watching the dealer. The dealer goes up to this guy and this guy hands the dealer, I think is like a $5 bill because it had like a little bit of like pink, kind of like reddish pink on it. And usually that's like what a $5 bill looks like. And the pit boss was like, oh, he wants me to give this to you as a tip. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. I grabbed it from him. I put it in my boot because I was wearing boots at the time. I put it in my boot. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like $5, that's so amazing. I was just feeling grateful. And this guy that I did not even see anywhere this whole 30 minutes I've been up here on the box at the casino, this random guy that I hadn't even seen comes up and gives me a $5 bill. That's great. I go upstairs to my break room. And it was the only tip I got for the night. The only one. And so I was like, you know what? I'm so grateful for this $5 bill. Like, that's awesome. Like, I still got tipped tonight. It's not a zero night. I'm grateful. I pull out this bill. Is it $100 bill? I was like, no, I'm like 1,000% sure that was a 5, like 1,000%. And it had the coloring of a 5. I even saw like the little number on it that I'm pretty sure I was positive it was a 5. Wasn't a $100 bill when I pulled it out of my boot. And I don't know. I think the universe can work a little magically like that. So it was crazy that I was feeling like this overwhelming feeling of gratitude called that in to me. That's one example. Another example is some of these work opportunities I've been getting. I've just been feeling like when I let go of my stress and my fear and my fear around lack, like not having enough work. Like this week. Okay. So I had this week 2 gigs that I was really excited about. Each of one of them were paying about $200. Last minute, both gigs canceled. So that was like a good chunk of money that I was going to lose. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, now I have to go try to find something to come up here to replace it. Lo and behold, I let go and I was like, you know what? It's fine. I feel grateful that I even got the opportunity to even be considered for these opportunities. And that sucks they got canceled, but at least I had gotten into them. Literally the same day, I got 2 other opportunities for the same exact pay. When I just let go and start feeling grateful for it, I've noticed that things are just coming to me. And that's where I've seen like letting go and be willing to just like give out my energy, give to others, like give freely without expecting things in return and just letting things happen. I've just been receiving so much in my life and I've been so grateful for it. And it's totally possible for you to have these same experiences like what I'm having too. And some of them are kind of woo-woo. Some of them are kind of funny. I don't want to share all of my experiences because some of them are actually crazy, but you get the point. You get the point. How can you do this in your life? How can you have these weird mystical moments of receiving happen to you in your life? First of all, make a list of what you're grateful for and feel it. Like actually feel gratitude. Feel it in your heart. Feel it in your soul. Feel it in your chest. Feel gratitude. Number 1, work on that. That's I would say I think that has been key for a lot of my things. It's just really having this overwhelming feeling of gratitude. Number 2, look at where in your life you can make room to receive. Give with gratitude. Go out there and where in your life can you make room for more money to come in? Where can you get rid of maybe some emotional baggage you're carrying to fill that with love and desire and peace? Like where can you give in order to make room to receive? And it can happen in different areas of your life, your love, relationships, money, physically your closet. Think of different places that you can let go. And make sure when you are giving, practicing that gratitude just randomly, but also when you are giving, practicing that gratitude as well. That's a great way to, and we kind of got you started with our soul challenge last week of stranger gratitude. So just keeping the gratitude moving. Let's continue on with that feeling. Now, we just talked about being able to give in order to receive. So how do we actually receive? giving is the first step, but like how do we know what we're wanting to receive? How do we know what's going to be coming to us? How can we choose what's coming to us when we receive? So that's going to lead us to quote number 4. Quote number 4 on page 38, it says, "You must be willing to follow your inspired impulses, maintain a vibrational match for what you want to attract, and trust that the results are already created for you." So this talks about kind of like 2 out of the 4 steps of what I like to call my 4 steps of manifestation, which I will do a video on specifically what my 4 steps of manifestation are and how they've worked in my life. So I can share that with you guys in another video. But let's talk about what the quote says. Following your inspired impulses. So we know we want to receive in our life, but what is it that we're actually going to receive? We have to figure that out. So this is going to take us through some practical steps for the law of attraction. In order to manifest, we must know what we want and we must trust that the universe will provide it to us. Following our internal guidance system, which is what we talked about, I think maybe within like the first chapter or like a couple weeks ago. So following your internal guidance system, your inspired impulses are leading you towards a place of flow, your place of abundance within the universe. You were given desires, you were given dreams for a reason. So you have to go and follow them. Those intuitive nudges, those inspired impulses for you to go out and do something, you were given that for a reason. So it's only natural to go take steps to follow them. Even if they seem crazy, there's nothing too crazy for the universe. So if you think it's like manageable, maybe stretch yourself a little farther. Go to what seems a little bit more outlandish. You know, they say, shoot for the moon, you'll land amongst the stars. Like, really shoot for that moon. Like, what does your heartfelt desires actually want? What is your intuitive impulses, your inspired impulses? What are they saying to you? Like, find those things and go for them because there is a reason you have that desire. And also, when you understand that and when you are going for it, you don't need to know how it's going to come to you. We cannot see how God in the universe works. So that's where our faith comes in. That's where we have to have trust that the results are already being created. We need to surrender and let go and trust that it's happening. That's the hard part. That is the hardest part. I will say that is the hardest part. It's almost like you've probably heard this before. I can't remember the first time I heard it, but I know Dolores Cannon, she's a past life hypnoregressionist. I listened to a conversation that she was having on YouTube at one of her seminars, and she was saying you need to manifest, you need to place your order to the universe. And when you go to a restaurant to place an order, you just tell the waiter what you want. The waiter goes back and the cook cooks it, and then they bring it to you, right? And you don't know what's going on in the kitchen. You don't know how it's being prepared. I mean, you could ask, but like, you don't know how it's being prepared. You just know that your food is going to come at some point. And that's exactly like manifestation. You place your order, you patiently wait with no fear or anxiety because you know the food is coming. You already believe that it's on its way and you're excited about it because you're like, oh, this is going to be so good. I know I placed this order. The meal's going to be delicious. I don't know how they're preparing it, especially if it's something really fancy that like I wouldn't even know how to cook. I don't know how they're preparing it, but I know it's going to be here. That's exactly how you have to feel about these desires that you have, these things that you want to go into your life. Now, this comes with patience and surrender. And this, like I said, this is not easy. This is the hardest part. Surrendering and having patience for the universe is the hardest part because the universe does not work on our time. It works in its own time. And we don't have to understand it because we need to just have faith that it is working. That's really all it is. So, some personal stories to reflect these kind of manifestations that have happened into my life. And I will also do another video a little bit more in depth about my 4 steps of manifestation. And some of these stories will overlap because they have to do when I did these practical steps and they happened. And I will say, like, I read this book and I was already kind of like, my 4 steps really mimic what this book talks about a lot, but mine are just, I think, a little more refined, which is fine. Everyone has, and there's people out there that have like the 12 steps to manifestation, the 1 step to manifestation. I feel like it's all kind of the same thing. There's many different avenues to get there, and you just kind of have to find what works best with your energy. So I don't think anyone's necessarily wrong, because maybe that works amazing for them, but it might not work for everybody. So I will share my 4 steps of manifestation in another video. But let me talk about some practical stories of when I have seen myself just trust the universe, like know what I want, trust the universe, and then it happened. There's 2 of them. One of them is like more practical. One of them is just really silly. The more practical one is currently this house I am living in. I was not going to be living in this house. Originally, we applied for a different place that I loved, that I was absolutely in love with. It was perfect in my eyes, and I was so excited to move in there. They, at the last minute, decided to not rent the place anymore. So we had already sent an application and everything. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Like, now we don't have anywhere to live. We have to move in a week. I don't know where we're going. Or maybe it was 2 weeks. I think it was maybe 2 weeks. We have to move in 2 weeks. I don't know where we're going. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to just be really excited. Okay, universe, I'm excited. You have the perfect place in mind for us. I know exactly where we're going to be. We're going to be somewhere that I can express my creativity, somewhere that's going to level us up. Like, I know it's coming, and all I got to do is wait. Sure enough, 2 days later, this place came up, went and toured it, immediately was like, yeah, we applied, got approved. It all worked out so perfectly. And so I did my 4 steps for this, and it worked out perfectly. The other thing I did was I manifested a skincare mini fridge, which sounds really dumb, but I was testing to see if manifestation, like my 4 steps worked. Like, I really was testing it. And so I cleared out a space for the mini fridge before I even it was like a raffle. So like and my name was only in this like raffle maybe twice, when some girls were in there for like 20 times or more. My name was in there twice. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to practice. Like, it's not high odds of my name getting picked, like it's really not. So I'm just going to try to manifest. So I cleared out a little space for the mini fridge. I knew exactly where it was going to go. I knew what I was going to put in it. I got really excited about it. I was feeling lots of gratitude. And then I was just like, okay, universe, I know it's going to be here. So let's see. I got it. It was like 2 days later. They pulled the raffle and I got the mini fridge. Ironically, I still haven't even used it. But I have it because I practiced my manifestation. So I just did it to see if it would work. So like it can work for you, and you can use it to manifest really silly things or like really serious things. The one thing I have noticed, and I'll talk about this in my other video, is that especially if it's not hindering someone else's free will or harming anybody else, your manifestation way more likely to happen because you're not hurting someone else. You're finding that it's aligned and meant for you. And this can happen with almost anything, at least what I've heard. There are still areas that I feel like I struggle with manifestation and I'm still working on. But using these tips and actually doing these steps, I've seen a lot more success with having things that I know my heartfelt desires, things that are meant for me, come to me. So let's talk about practical applications to help you start playing with manifestation, to help you start manifesting and tapping into the law of attraction. Everything we talked about will help you, but the next few chapters are really going to dive in deep and going to help you find what you want, because that is step 1. What do you want? What do you want to receive? What do you actually want to receive? Like $1 million and a car sounds like great, but like what is your heartfelt desires? Like what does your heart want to receive? Like what do you actually want? And so the next couple chapters are going to actually be diving into that. So we're going to take the practical steps a little bit slower so that you can read the next chapters and actually look into it. And it's going to help guide you. There's a lot of journal prompts actually in the book. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. But start thinking about, to prepare you for this, start thinking about what lights you up. What lights you up? Because when you find out what that is, that's going to make all these next steps become so much easier. So find out what lights you up. Then also to support that, find out when have you felt inspired impulses. Think about in the past, when have you felt inspired impulses and followed them? What happened? Or if you didn't follow them, what happened? Just think about when you felt inspired impulses, and maybe you've never felt them. That's okay. We're going to learn about what that looks like. But start thinking about what lights you up. And then if you have had those inspired impulses, think back to what those were and what happened. So those are some things you can do to prepare you for the next steps in the book and also prepare you for the next week's podcast. So once again, that is it for this episode. This week, just to recap, we explored about how the energy and intention we put into our thoughts directly shapes what we're attracting into our lives. So focusing on what we want rather than what we don't is key here. So that was number 1. We also learned that through gratitude, giving freely, and trusting our inspired impulses, we can open ourselves up to abundance in all of its forms. So those were the 2 main things we talked about today. Now, let's give you guys, before we move on to this week's soul challenge, which I'm really excited about, and I'm pretty sure I nailed how to get it onto the screen for the video watchers out there. So we're going to get to that soul challenge in just a second, but I do have 3 more journal prompts for you to prepare you for next week. Prompt number 1 is, think about the last few days. What have your thoughts and conversations been focused on most? Have they been centered on what's going wrong or what you're hoping to create? Pick one reoccurring negative thought and rewrite it as what you do want to happen and to experience instead. Second journal prompt. Write down 10 things you are genuinely grateful for right now, big or small. And as you write each one, really let yourself feel it. After your list, notice, did your energy shift at all? What does abundance already look like in your life today? Number 3, think of a time you followed an inspired impulse, a gut feeling, a nudge, an idea that excited you, and it led somewhere meaningful. What did that feel like? Are there any impulses you've been ignoring lately? And what might happen if you followed them? So that's journal prompt number 3. Like I said, if you do want to share any of your responses to these journal prompts, I would love to connect with you about them. They're super, super cool. I hope you're having fun with them. I hope they have been helping in some way. Also, give me feedback. If you want more journal prompts per week, let me know. If you want less journal prompts per week, also let me know. Now, let's get on to our weekly soul challenge. All right, let's give this wheel a spinny spin spin. Oh, okay. This week we got moonlight magic. So let me tell you guys what moonlight magic is all about. Okay, guys, so moonlight magic means that every night this week, look up at the moon and ask, what did my soul need today? You can either answer it in your head or you can write down what is coming to you for that. So once again, every night, look at the moon and ask, what did my soul need today? See what answers come. So that is our weekly soul study challenge. All right, everyone. Remember, you guys can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts as well. If you want to see more from me personally, you can follow me on YouTube or Instagram at Dream Life Jules. I would love to connect with you all there. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening in. Take what resonates, leave the rest, and I hope you have an amazing week becoming your happiest, healthiest, most magnetic self. Until next time, bye.